Common Ed with Jared and Ian. I mean, there's got to be a common sense approach to this. I mean, right?
Generation X has been quiet way too 15 seconds, velocity 2,700 feet per second, altitude 9. It was always to be known.
Common Ed.
I want my MT.
Hey, and I feel fine.
All right, welcome to Common X, episode 15. King Elon, visionary, villain, or vanguard? How the hell you doing, Jared?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm hanging in there. It's good to be
That's
back
good.
on air. Did you have a good holiday?
Yeah, not too bad. How about you?
Oh, yeah. It was all right, man. You know,
The snow is
quite a
fun.
bit, but yeah. It seems like every year my wife prays for snow on Christmas, and it just does it all of January and February. I told her she needed to start praying for snow a little earlier.
Yeah, Thanksgiving.
So, yeah.
That would probably suit. That would probably catch up to Christmas. What's
Right?
funny is my son, he said the same thing. He's like, oh, I wanted to wait Christmas. I'm like, well, you got the day after. How's that?
Right. All right, man. Well, let's dive into the polarizing legacy of Elon Musk, or
All right.
lack thereof, in some opinion. He's been dubbed King Elon by fans and critics alike as one of the most influential figures of our times. I mean, it's kind of up to debate, really.
Yeah,
We
I
were
think
talking a little bit before we got started. What did you say? You said something about he's from South Africa?
Yeah, he was born in South Africa. So I think, a lot of people are like, King Elon or President Elon. I'm like, his buddy relationship with Trump is as close as he'll ever get to being president in the United States. So since he was not born a US citizen, he cannot be president. So
Yeah, I was not aware of that. Do you think there is a connection between the Tesla truck being blown up outside of a Trump casino in Las Vegas in recent events?
I
Is there a
definitely
connection
think it's
there?
a message.
And what's sad about this whole thing is it seems like decorated combat vets are the ones who are doing this. These
Yeah,
are like,
same thing in Louisiana, right?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the guy is like a five-time Bronze Star military hero
Yeah.
who rents a Elon Musk Tesla truck and blows it up in front of the Trump Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, and he takes his own life shortly before that. So
Right.
I'm wondering if all of this King Elon talk has anything to do with that.
I think people are frustrated, right? Like you now have the world's richest man, posting on X every day, like what he thinks leaders of the world should do. Right? So, and like if he doesn't like you, he's going to tell you.
Yeah.
So I think his recent posts on the Prime Minister of the UK, he was in support of him, and now he's not. And I think God, what was it? The German Chancellor. He said something on X about Germany and now supporting the far right in Germany. And the Chancellor's like, well, just don't feed the troll. So I think
Right.
that brings up a good point. Like, I think Elon's a troll. Like, if you look through his posts on X and what he says in the media, things like that, he's like the definition of a troll. And he's kind of a bully. So has he done some things right? I think so. Right? Like, SpaceX with his reusable rockets, that was a cool thing. I think we have technology that we don't need to use rockets anymore, but that's another episode.
Yeah. Well, he definitely sparks admiration or controversy, doesn't he? No matter where
Yeah,
he goes. I
There
know.
doesn't seem to be an in-between, right?
Yeah, he's one or the other. You love him or you hate him. I can't make heads or tails out of his agenda, honestly. I mean, what he's doing with the new government audit and everything, and his big push for AI and all that. I don't know how what does America look like when, I mean, I was thinking AI was like, okay, the technology's coming. To some degree, you got to get on board with technology. You've got to,
Right.
you can't just refuse to work or not figure out how to continue to live when you lose your job to AI. But I was thinking this was like 20, 30, 40 years, maybe even past my time, grandkids going through this. But I think it's certainly going to be pushed into the limelight a lot sooner with Elon Musk doing this, with the government role. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I think AI is here to stay, and we've already let the cat out of the bag, right? So we can't put AI back in its bag. And depending on what news you read and who you believe, like OpenAI has already achieved AGI, right, which is artificial general intelligence. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the big scary thing that everyone was talking about, because that means that your AI has now become self-aware. So I'm not sure if that's true or not. Like I said, there's been a lot of reports, and even from some people that work inside of OpenAI have come out and talked about it. But I don't know.
Right.
Could
Well,
be, could not be.
we had your brother on episode 6, I believe, and he works in AI, right? And
Yeah, and
I
I think in that episode he said AGI is like a year or two off, but according to what I've been reading, OpenAI has already achieved it. So
yeah, I've been reading the same thing that we're going to start seeing AI customers basically, or customer service representatives this year
yeah.
with companies. So almost like companies can buy AI as consultants and use them accordingly for whatever their agenda is. So I agree with you, buddy. It's here. It's here to
Yep.
stay. Obviously, you can't go back in the bag. And this whole AI futuristic, cars flying and smashing into each other shit's already gonna start happening a lot sooner than we thought. It's
Yeah,
pretty
and I
incredible.
think, Elon's kind of at the forefront of that. Like he's, invested, I believe, quite a bit of money in OpenAI. And at first he was partners in there, and then I think him and Sam had disagreements and they kind of split ways. So I'm not sure how much he's involved with that, but he has his own robots too now. So with Tesla, he has his own robot that he's building. What it can actually do is anybody's best guess, right? Because like I think his big reveal that he had with those robots, it was found that there were actually actors in the background still controlling the robots and talking through them to make them seem more human. So I don't think he's as far along as some of these other companies, but he's still, you know, going forward with it and wants a robot in everybody's house. And I kind of support that because I think they'd be better at chores than my kids. So,
I was gonna say, what kind of robot are we talking about here, man? Like,
like fully humanoid robot.
huh?
And shortly after sex bots will come. So
All right. Well, I guess that answered my next question.
it
So
always goes
visionary or
there.
villain, man? Right, right.
I think
I
he's
mean,
both, right?
you think
So
he's
I
both?
think, yeah, I think he has a vision for the future of where he wants humanity to go. Do I agree with it? A little bit. Do I think Mars is that where we need to go? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of stuff we can fix here on Earth with the amount of money he's trying to spend on getting to Mars. But I think there's a
So
lot of
you,
things that need to be fixed here first.
yeah, I agree with you there. So I mean, you referenced the controversial decisions, the tweets, the public persona, right? His critiques of other people's leadership style, his leadership style. I believe there's some harsh work environments. Obviously, the mass layoffs of X, formerly Twitter, and what is going to come when AI technology fully makes its move, robotic or otherwise. Uh, you talked about how he redefined the industry as far as renewables and the rockets and Tesla. But what do you think his ambitions for humanity might be?
Well, he wants to see us on Mars and colonizing Mars and then being kind of that spacefaring race, right? What you read about in sci-fi books. And he's never going to see it in his lifetime. But I
Does
think
Gen
he's
X
trying
want to go to
to,
Mars?
I don't know. I mean, I watched the Schwarzenegger movie, right? They were on Mars.
All
It
right,
seemed
all right.
kind of cool if you were wealthy. Didn't seem kind of cool if you were lower income, but um, or the working class. So I think that's, part of the problem with our planet is we still have that class system. So if we start expanding into our universe and other universes or other planets, like we need to fix humanity before we start doing that. And I honestly think, like, depending on what conspiracy theories or what you believe in aliens, I think that's why we haven't been allowed to expand. I think with all the UFO insiders that are coming forward in Congress talking about the technologies that we do have, we definitely have the capabilities to travel. But I think other aliens are like, we don't want you guys loose. you guys are
You guys are
you
the
guys are
most
horrible.
murderous mother effers on the planet. We don't want
Right.
you near us.
He's like, you guys just nuke each other. Like, and that's your biggest threat. Like, you still kill each other, you still can't get along. You still have religions that divide people. You still have countries, right? Everybody's different countries, and I don't like your country because of what happened in the past. Look at this conflict right now happening in the Middle East with Israel and Iran and
Yeah,
the
that whole thing's
Gaza Strip,
getting
right?
wild.
So there's, I think, a lot of issues that humanity needs to figure out before we expand out into space. I think that Musk is doing what he believes will get humanity to a future that we are space colonizers. But I think there's a lot of social issues that we need to figure out before we get there. So, but like I said, the reusable rockets, that's a cool thing because now it doesn't cost as much to get into space. Whereas
Hmm.
NASA, they had to build a new rocket every time they went up. So now that I think Tesla or SpaceX has conquered that, and I think Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin's doing the same thing. They're testing that with reusable rockets now too. And then Starlink, like our podcast wouldn't be possible without that, right? Because I have Starlink for internet, you have Starlink for internet.
Yeah.
So like I think he's done some good things. Um, the Tesla and the electric cars, I don't know, man. Like the more I look into it, I think electric cars are just greenwashing, but I don't know.
Yeah. Huh.
Because the amount of destruction we're doing to the planet for electric cars right now is ridiculous. So, what the people fail to realize is like where that electricity comes from to power up and recharge your car. Cool, you got an electric car that runs on a battery, but you're still using
Right.
coal to create that electricity, or nuclear in some cases, or hydroelectric like we use in the Northwest. Like we
Right.
have a lot of dams here that provide most of the electricity.
Well, I
And
remember
then,
looking at it too when Tesla first came out, man, they had deaths from explosions from these batteries as they were, enhancing the technology and getting to where they're at now. And quite frankly, that was the first thing that came to my head when I walked in the door from work the other day. And my wife's like, "Hey, a Tesla just blew up in front of, Trump Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas." My first thought was like, "Oh, okay, well, there's another problem with his truck."
right,
you know, I
the
thought
batteries
I
got
didn't
wet.
I didn't know that the guy had a bunch of fireworks and gasoline and they're,
Right.
like intentionally doing this. I just figured it was another, like, hey, we're not there yet technology wise, but I have seen those trucks going down the road. It's pretty wild. So with this villainous persona, man, do you think it's disruptive to, you know, Gen X?
I think a little bit. Like I said, like with electric cars, he's still a huge proponent in his battery factories, his giga factories, right? That he's building all these battery systems in of lithium. So he's definitely in support of lithium mining, which is outrageously bad for the environment. And there are a lot of more amazing technologies out there that actually produce better battery systems than lithium ion. So I don't know if his Tesla company is looking into those alternatives, because his narrative on social media and in the press is we need to mine lithium. We need to mine more, mine. So I don't think that he is looking at alternative solutions that are better for our planet and better for humanity and last longer, and you can recycle. So, our lithium battery systems that they have now, you can't really recycle those batteries. So now what do you do with them?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a good question. So I guess we could probably say that, he's a product of our times, right?
I
Uh,
I think so. Kind of, like, he didn't grow up in America, right? He grew up in South Africa. So I think his views are a little different. Uh, I don't think they necessarily align with how Gen X grew up in the US. Because I think Gen X overall, again, you're influenced by your environment. So Gen Xers in UK could be a little different than Gen Xers in the US. Probably not a lot, but Gen Xers in China probably don't agree with Gen Xers in the US at all. Maybe,
right.
maybe
They might
not.
have missed
Right.
out on the whole Kurt Cobain grunge thing or something, or Beavis and Butthead. I'm not sure.
Right. So when I talk about Gen X, like, I really talk about US Gen X. I realize there's a whole Generation X around the world, but like I said, depending on the environment that you're raised in, your beliefs and your background can be completely different.
Right. I mean, the Oklahoma City bombings would affect us differently than they would someone in China, or
Right.
maybe even maybe the Challenger explosion or, the Berlin Wall might resonate with all of us. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think there's world events that shape how the world views itself, right? The wall coming down, I think, was a big deal. Kind of the end of communism in Germany. But,
Right.
Putin's still pushing it. And so how many people in Russia that were Gen X are aligned with how Putin thinks? I don't think a lot, but I don't know that we're
Right.
ever going to get real reports out of Russia and what Russia's population believes or doesn't believe.
Well, and I
So,
would think that, unfortunately, I think that some people in that country too, and I could be talking out of my ass here, but it seems to me that under a crazy dictatorship environment, such as the citizens of that country and what they're going through, is it seems like they are forced to believe certain things, and I think there are probably people in that culture or in that environment that are just not going to believe their own beliefs because it's dangerous.
right.
Maybe they're afraid of it. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. And I think some of that you can see on, like, X, right? Formerly
Hmm.
Twitter. And that's why I think I don't know, him buying X, I really don't agree with. Because now he pushes his narrative on X. He says he's all for freedom of speech, but there's been multiple instances where he has suppressed speech from other people that don't agree with him. Or, the more influential one was the whole Super Bowl thing where Biden said something and it got more likes or tweets than Elon did. So then he went to his programmers and said, I have to be number one. So I'm
Really,
like,
he really did that?
okay. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like that isn't freedom of speech anymore. So, how much do I trust that Elon is actually doing freedom of speech instead of just saying, right? To get the brownie points with people. I believe in freedom of speech, but I don't practice what I preach. Multiple instances of that. So, and like I said earlier, I think he's a troll. And the X platform allows him to be a bigger troll than I think a lot of people could do on Facebook or Instagram. Because I think X is pretty big with its audience, and a lot of people are on there. So I think he has a lot of sway with what he says on there. And a lot of people, like you said earlier, if he's a villain or people think he's amazing, right? Because I think he's saying a lot of things that people want to hear, but is he actually doing the things he says? So I think
Yeah.
in that freedom of speech, I don't think he is. He's pushing it, but it's a lot of him and nobody else.
Right. It makes you wonder. I mean, this fast, move fast to break things mentality. How does that align with, the values and progress of sustainability and what we actually need versus what he's telling the people?
Right.
Like that kind of echoes your sentiment there.
Yeah, I think when
Um,
you can look at what happened when he came in and bought X, right? He told everybody this is how you're going to work. You're going to work 16 hours a day like I do. If you don't, you're gone. So he had this huge layoff because people didn't agree with them. And a lot of how he managed the algorithm to push his stuff higher than anybody else's, a lot of people didn't agree with either. So they either quit or he fired them. So there's a lot of stuff that he's doing that's it's still like the same old boomer leadership mentality. Do what I tell you to do or you're gone. He doesn't empower his employees to do things. Not from what I've seen. And that's at every company that
he
I've
kind of
seen
like
him
more of
run.
so he's like the modern day micromanager. You
Yeah,
think?
I think, and that's where I think the King Elon comes from, right? Almost dictator Elon. It would probably be a better statement because I think that's how he is. He's going to dictate to his employees. He's now dictating to the world. This is what I believe. This is how America should go. This is how the world should go. And if you don't like it, kiss my butt. Right. And I'm going to
Right.
delist you on X, or I'm going to make sure your tweets don't get seen as much as mine. So I think there's definitely a bias more towards Elon on X than there is on his naysayers or critics.
Hmm. How do you think his influence on how we perceive billionaires, man, their role will affect, shaping the future? Do you think that he's going to change our minds on like, I mean, I've always been kind of like I mean, Gen X guy growing up, like, it's kind of for the blue collar people, the working man, like what I am and what you are, uh, more partial to that, uh, less empathetic to billionaires who, try to dominate people's world and, whatever their views are. Cause I can't relate to a billionaire, but do you think that he is changing that perception in people's minds by being a billionaire with so much influence right now?
Uh, of what? Billionaires are still dicks?
Right. Do you think that he's kind of like getting the getting us
I mean, I,
getting
I
us
don't agree with
are us
billionaires at all.
peasants right? I don't at all either. But do you think he's having us peasants fall in love with billionaires now with
I,
his
I
high
don't
reach and
I
his
don't think
influence?
so. Like I think a lot of more people, and I think from what we saw recently, like with the Tesla truck being exploded, I think that's a statement, right? Of
Right.
people fed up with billionaires and how much they control. And same with Louisiana. I think that was more Islamic related, is what the narrative they're pushing anyway. But Islam has always been against the West and capitalism. And I think we're seeing kind of why. Like, I don't agree with Islam or their fundamentalists, right? Like the religion itself is a decent religion, but you have the far right wingers, I guess, the extremist groups in any religion. Like you see it in Christianity, right? With the KKK. And there's other militia groups that are Christian that believe that only the whites should rule everything, right? And
Right.
if you're not Christian and believe this way, you should die. I mean, give me a break. Like again, we're all people living on the same planet. We're all human beings on the same planet. It shouldn't really matter what religion you are or race you are. But kind of to, bring it back to the billionaire class, because that's what they are. Like we now have more billionaires than we've ever had in the world. And I think capitalism is the contributing factor to that because again is something we talked about in our corporate greed episode is that now that corporations are people They can do whatever they want. And it's always
Yeah.
about the bottom line, the money, 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 money. We got to increase shareholder price. We got to make more money. It's always money. It's never about the environment. They say it is sometimes, right? But I think that's part of the greenwashing. And I think Elon's a big part of that greenwashing. Like even his solar project that he has, like solar panels have, they've come a long way, but there's been all kinds of technology invented in the past 15, 20 years that have made solar panels almost 98% efficient. But the best one you can buy on the market right now is, I think, 30.
Mm.
And, being a proponent of green energy, like, or renewable energy, again, they always don't bring up the part of where that electricity comes from. So, the coal-fired plants that are polluting the environment is where most of that electricity comes from. So your electric cars still aren't that great for the environment. And that's why I push hemp, right? Because, hemp can fix all that.
Right. And anyone who hasn't seen episode 3, MJ and Hemp, Jared really breaks it down. I mean, it's something to think about when you think about waste and resources, and definitely the message that Elon Musk is putting out about being efficient and running his audits and everything right now. I mean, heck, look at MJ and Hemp. I mean, you talk
Yeah.
about being efficient. Yeah.
Well, and like our other episode about unions, right? Like Musk is very anti-union. Like he's specifically prohibiting his employees from unionizing. So I think they've tried a couple times, but he smashes it down or fires people. So again, I think that's that billionaire class and that whole leadership mentality of do what I say or you're gone.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
he thinks he knows best. And I think there's part of that in entrepreneurs and CEOs. Like that's why they create companies, is they see a future, right, of where they want humanity to go or some new product or something else. So I think that's the good part of being that kind of founder mentality. But you still have to enable your workforce, right, and trust that they're going to make the best decisions for your company and not mandate to them. So I think he's a very big mandator. And you see it on X with his posts. So
Do you think he's a narcissist?
oh, definitely. I mean, he's now had 3 wives and he's up to 12 kids because he wants to repopulate the world. So I think that's
By
all about
himself?
it. Oh yeah.
Huh.
And most of them were former employees. So like, can you date outside your work pool? I don't know, man.
Wow. Yeah, that is definitely not a value that we really hold, at
But I
least in
mean,
my experience. And
I think with
leadership.
Elon being the world's richest man, I think a lot of people give credence to that. Like what Elon says, well, maybe he does know what he's talking about. But you can see, like during COVID, he made some stupid pandemic health statements and made it so he wanted all his employees to come back to work in all his factories, and that COVID wasn't that big a deal. So, and, he puts, again, corporate interests ahead of employee safety. So, again, with that anti-union, and that I really don't think he cares about people, which is amazing because he wants to go to Mars for humanity. Right? So I think it's more he wants to go to Mars for Musk. I'm like, hey, dude, if you want to go live on Mars, cool, go. Bye.
Well, and as being one of the most influential and possibly charismatic leaders that this country's seen in a while, what does Elon Musk's legacy look like? What do you think that looks like? Is he going to be remembered as a modern day Edison, a disruptor, or is he just going to be something else in between?
Well, it's funny you make that comparison with Edison because I think he kind of is. Like, if you read through your history, like Nikola Tesla used to work for Edison, and they
Right.
actually had disagreements about quite a few things, like the AC/DC war, right? So, and while working for Edison, Tesla invented a light bulb that lasted forever. It would never burn out. And Edison's like, why would I want that? Like, I can't ever sell another light bulb. So that doesn't make any sense. So I think Elon's kind of that same, where he has employees that work for him that have good ideas. I don't know that he has good ideas. Like, if you look at Tesla, the actual car company, he bought it, right? It was already a company before he bought it that was working on electric vehicles. You can argue whether or not him coming on board made a bigger difference. I think it might have, but I had a friend that initially, bought into that first Tesla model Roadster, the first car they built, and he was frustrated as heck because, Elon's notorious at underestimating timelines. Like, he doesn't give realistic timelines to anything. So I think we're seeing that now too with his Doge, right? The Department of Government Efficiency. Like him and
It's really concerning. There's a lot of American jobs in there.
yeah, I mean, I think I saw an interview with Ramaswamy, Vikram, who's the other person that Trump's appointing to that department, talking about they want to get rid of 75% of the jobs. I'm like, all right, there's 3 million people that work for the government. If you get rid of 75% of that those employees, what are they now going to do for jobs?
Right.
So you've just created an unemployment class that's getting worse in the tech industry, especially with AI. It's now a lot easier for one person to do 3 or 4 people's jobs with those AI tools. So what are all the unemployed people going to do?
Well, a lot of those are probably going to be Gen Xers, probably in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, having to
Right.
start over again
Exactly. And
after a 20, 30-year career in the government.
yeah, so I mean, I'm a good example. I've been in the tech industry for 32 years, and it is now harder than ever to find a job in that industry because
I can only imagine.
there's a lot of roles, but there's, I don't know, probably 100 people per job looking for those jobs. And so the one person that gets it, the other 99 still don't have that job.
Right.
And your unemployment only lasts so long. So once that runs out, you're going to go down and work at McDonald's. It's
I
not a
don't think
living
so.
wage.
Yeah, I don't think so. That doesn't seem. That doesn't. I mean, you can't even draw a comparison there.
Right.
Yeah, and I know that Elon Musk has made statements about how, like, eventually none of us are going to work, or we'll work if we want to. I mean, some really wild shit, man. Really wild statements to come out of this guy's mouth.
Yeah. I think, like I said, the statements are okay as long as you don't have a money or currency based economy. I can tell you, you're going to have some sort of UBI, right? Universal basic income, where the corporations would need to fund that.
I
So
wonder what that
now,
looks like for the guy that's got $1,000 mortgage and the other guy's got a $2,000 mortgage, and then they both get $1,500 a month. Can the $1,000 mortgage guy even afford to keep his house? I knew the $2,000 month mortgage guy probably won't be able to keep his house.
right,
I mean, what a shit show.
it is.
I mean, how in
And
the hell?
I mean,
But that's
I agree that universal basic income's got to be a thing with more and more people being laid off. And, if you're going to go through and with Doge lay off 75% of the government, which I think the statements from Elon and Vikram are ridiculous, right? They don't understand, honestly, how the government works. I think they do. But I think once they actually get in there and see how screwed up it is, it's going to be a lot harder to fix. And, I have no, what do I want to say? I think the government's messed up and I think it could be fixed. Right. I think a lot of things that we charge for in the government are ridiculous. Like you hear about the $600 toilet seat, things like that. I think Department of Defense not being able to tell us where the $1 billion they spent, or $800 billion they spent last year went. I think that's a problem. So I think if Elon and Vikram and everybody else can come in and provide transparency to where that money actually goes and then fix that, I think that'd go a long ways. But
That
I
would
think,
actually be a good thing. Yeah.
yeah, it'd be a good thing. And it would provide the funding to create that UBI, right? For people to be able to have a living wage. And like you said earlier, I don't know that it can be just one fixed amount. Like if you're unemployed, you've been unemployed for this long, here's $1,500 a month. It's got to be close to, a living wage of how you're currently living. So you can't ask people that have, $6,000 a month worth of bills to take $1,500 from the government and expect them to live.
Yeah.
It's
There's
just not
just
going to
no
happen.
way.
So, and with the cost of housing going up, I see a lot of younger people now not even wanting to buy houses. Like
Yeah.
they'll just move in with their parents.
Or just stay too.
All
Yeah.
right. So like Gen X, I think, is getting a lot of that burden right now as, and I think the boomers are too, because I think they built, a kind of this cushion of retirement based on what they thought they were going to need. But the cost of stuff has gone up so much that a lot of boomers are starting to have to go back to work that are retired to
I
just
think
to
we
be able to
also
afford
have,
things.
yeah. And I think this is the new modern day thing, man. I think we have Gen Xers that are actually living with their boomer parents still.
Well, and I think, Elon's a perfect example of why that's a problem. He's the world's richest man. Like, how much money does a person need?
Yeah.
Honestly, like, how much money is enough? Like, you really need $100 billion or whatever his net worth is now. I don't even know. Um, so you create a lot of haves and have-nots, and that contributes to your crime rates because if people don't have what they need to survive, or the things they think they need to survive, they're going to go take it. And I think that's why you saw, again, the whole Tesla Cybertruck being blown up. I think people are frustrated. And the fact that it's military also, I think, shows that there's also a lack of mental health care in this country to help people deal with those problems. But
Yeah.
again, with most of the money going to the 1,000 billionaires, like, again, one, how much money is enough? And two, you're just going to make things worse.
What do you think the end goal is for a guy like Elon or even a Trump or somebody of that caliber, somebody with that much money, that much power? What is the end goal? To have it all? Is it? I
I
mean,
think so.
where does it end? So I have it all and everybody else has nothing. I win.
Maybe.
It's kind of a fascinating thought.
Yeah. And I'd love to interview him because I think it would be amazing to talk to him about how much money is enough for you. Like, what is the legacy that you want to leave? That you're a greedy billionaire that just tried to get more money for yourself? Or are you actually working to improve humanity? Because with that amount of money, he could do a lot of things that would improve humanity. And the other billionaires in the world could do the same thing, but they don't. It's more about more money for them. And I think it comes back to that the love of money is the root of all evil. I
Right.
think
I
when
like the way that
once you
you
get,
said that too.
I think once you get to a point, money just corrupts you, corrupts the way you think, corrupts how you believe things, corrupts how you see the world, and it just becomes the only thing that you're focused on. And do
I
I
think we should
see?
do it, man. I don't think we'd be able to get him on this show, but I
I
think that
don't
we
think
could
he'd
actually
come
be.
on, but
I think we could be partial, though. Do you think he would have an attitude about it, or just kind of think that we're just trying to beat him up? Because I don't think that we would. I would actually want to know why he is the way that he is. Like, does he have empathy? Does he care about others? I think I would have to think that as a human being, that somewhere down there he's got to have those beliefs or those
maybe
feelings. Yeah,
I don't
it might
know.
not just be the cool thing to do by displaying that at this time, but what concerns me is, we kind of just have this rowdy, fast, do as I say kind of thing, like you were talking about earlier. But when the shit goes down and people do get hurt from this, which they inevitably, it's inevitably going to happen. People are going to get hurt by losing their jobs. People are going to get hurt by, initial resource based economy, I believe, because I mean, how do you even, it's got to start somewhere and it can't be good for a lot of people while they work it out. Is he going to care at that point?
I don't know.
I'm
Maybe.
wondering if he'll be able to offer solutions at that point, or I would think probably not if he's the guy at the ground breaking phase of this. There's got to be turmoil, I would think.
Well, I'm sure there is, and within his companies, if there's turmoil, he fires you. So again, it's his way or the highway.
So maybe that's where that King Elon thing comes in, because it's off with your head, huh?
Yeah.
Do not
And
challenge me.
I mean, I haven't seen different. Like I've, you know, followed him for quite a while, and the sentiment and statements from people that have worked for him, that's how he is. And even in life in general, that seems to be how he is. So when you have that many examples of how you are, it doesn't matter what you believe. I think you as a person are flawed. And I think Elon as a person is flawed. And I don't think he grew up that way. I mean, he grew up kind of silver spooned in South Africa. His dad, made a lot of money, so he came from money. And then I think that right there kind of warps your perspective of the world a little bit. Um, Now, it's not a general statement that applies to every person that grew up rich, because I think there's a lot of examples of people that have fought that system and tried to better humanity with that money. But those are few and far between. I think there's a lot more examples of people just continuing to make more money for their family and not caring about the rest of the world or the other people in the world. And I don't know how
Right.
you change that mentality unless you start teaching things better in schools, maybe like teaching the youth that money isn't the thing. But that's the whole problem I have with the American dream, is that we've kind of hijacked it to be, you got to live in this $1 million McMansion, have yachts, Ferraris, Lamborghinis. And when we idolize people like Elon that are billionaires, that pushes that narrative still. So
Yeah.
people growing up, kids growing up, see that and they're like, well, that's what I need to be, because that's what a successful human being looks like, is being a billionaire. And in reality, I think, there's only like 1,000 billionaires in the US out of a population of almost 400 million or 350 million.
That's still a lot.
So is that
To be a
realistic?
billionaire.
Right?
Right. Well, and
Millionaires,
it's
sure, there's a lot of millionaires, and millionaires are a lot bigger number, but even millionaires, again, how much money is enough?
right.
So if you run a successful company and you are taking care of your employees, you're providing them great benefits, right? Great health care, great living wages, and empowering your employees to be the best that they can be, then I think, cool, you can have that money. I think your tax rate should be higher. And I think that the amount of loopholes that corporations and the rich elite have to get out of paying taxes are pretty gigantic. And I don't see the Department of Government Efficiency fixing that anytime soon. So,
No, I don't think that. I agree with you. I don't think that'll be high priority to examine the philanthropy tax rebate shelters that people with money have. And I do not know honestly what his attachment or feeling is to the average working man that is not a billionaire. I don't have any information about that, but it does make you wonder when you look at the psyche of someone that, I mean, it takes a certain degree of arrogance to be successful. I agree with that. I think a CEO somewhat needs that. A great leader, I think, needs that, as my light falls off the wall here.
yeah.
But I don't know what the relationship is to that. But I think that maybe leaders coming up now, I mean, because I don't recall as a child growing up thinking, okay, my dream is to get an education, make a lot of money, be the CEO of United Healthcare, just to be capped by another guy that came from money,
Right.
in New York, walking to my hotel. I don't think that's the American dream. But I think that some of these influential and charismatic leaders that are running the world now, like Musk, are the cause for that behavior.
Yeah.
I think to some degree, because somebody somewhere is getting fucked for someone to
Right.
have that much money and that much power. And, no one's going to like that. After a while, people are going to start, renting Tesla trucks and blowing them up outside of a Las Vegas Trump casino, or behaving that way at some point. And I think the Luigi Mangione, Brian Thompson case kind of represents that. And I think that seeing Trump's or Tesla's truck being blown up in front of a Trump hotel and casino in Las Vegas is kind of pointing towards that as well. Like you said, frustration. Also, too, we have, unfortunately, for our military service members that I respect so much, that we wouldn't have these freedoms and protections that we have these days, that we do today. We just wouldn't have these freedoms without those hardworking individuals that gave all, that fought for us and fought for this country. We do see them suffer from mental illness,
Right.
for sure. And I don't know if that plays in there. I don't know if this guy, there's no manifesto on this one. There's no, is he a martyr? Is he confused? I know that it greatly upset me when I saw the first media coverage on the Louisiana one, because the first thing that I heard, and I think it was, I want to say CNN was the first one to reference it. And it was the first news media outlet that came across the screen when I walked in on the ticker on the banner of my phone, was that this guy had financial problems.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, no, it's ISIS or it's something else. It's domestic terrorism. And then they bring up his military record. But at first, it was financial problems. Well, that upsets me, because you're dealing with something like, where these rich and powerful leaders are in control now. Everything is, ran by the rich and powerful entirely. And the first thing that we say as the consequence and action from something happening is that there was financial problems. That kind of tapped right into what we talked about.
Right. But you saw how quick they changed that narrative.
Yeah. And I think they should. I think that's wrong.
Maybe. Yeah. But maybe it's highlighting the overall issue is that people are fed up. Like, they can't afford things. Like,
right.
I'm a good example. Like, it's, haven't been able to find a job, so I'm starting my own company and hoping that takes off. So I think a lot of people are in that same boat. People are frustrated. They can't afford things. They can't, provide for their families. Unfortunately, they take the thought of, killing people. And I think that's wrong.
It's so bad.
Right? You shouldn't kill people. That shouldn't be I doubt it was their first thought. Right? Like, I think they got to a point where they were so desperate, and just, again, mental health care should be a bigger priority in the world, and definitely in the country of the United States, than a lot of other things. Because I think there's a lot of things wrong that people could talk to somebody about before they got to that point.
I'm
But
sure everybody
again,
has their limit as well. Yeah.
right. But again, with, billionaires like Elon having all the money and corporations like BlackRock and other, big corporations that own all the money in the entire world, basically, at least the US, like I think we're seeing a lot, and I don't think we're done seeing it. I don't think we're done seeing the frustration with people. I think Trump being elected highlighted a lot of that frustration in the United States. They're tired of the status quo, and they believed in Trump's narrative of MAGA, right? Make America great again. But is Trump really going to do that? I don't know.
It's certainly a good campaign slogan. I guess time will tell. To our listeners that are out there that are suffering, I know that we've had emotional discussions on here. Our previous episode concerning Raven, who was losing her house to foreclosure to U.S. Bank. People are feeling the squeeze. People are feeling, pressured. People are scared of losing their homes. People are scared of losing their jobs, and some are losing their homes. They're losing their jobs. They're not able to make ends meet. If you feel pushed to that level, to where you're packing up a gun or loading up explosives and renting a Tesla truck, I'd encourage you to just remember your family and somehow, just like Jared said, talk to somebody or do something. Because at the end of the day, I don't think that Elon Musk, I don't think Donald Trump is affected by this. I don't think that United Healthcare as a company as a whole is affected by the loss of Brian Thompson. I think they've already moved on.
Yep.
And I don't think that, we don't know what's going to happen with Luigi Mangione, but if you think about it, no manifesto, no turmoil or justice is going to come out of what you're prepared to do when you're pushed to your limits. At the end of the day, you'll have been a blip on CNN and Fox, maybe ABC or all the news outlets, certainly everywhere for 5 seconds, but your life won't be remembered. There's no justice in that. You're not
remembered the way you want it to be.
It won't be remembered the way that you want it to be. Your legacy will not be everything that you've dreamed of. And I know that we can all feel like that we're pushed to the end. But also, I think this country's been here before. I think we saw it during the Nixon years. There's a lot of similarities there. There's similarities to the president that was referenced that wasn't very popular, that, won a term, got impeached, lost a term, came back. The big Donald Trump comeback story here. Embarrassingly, I'll just admit I don't even remember who that president was. But through all of these times in history, it seems that we have been here before. History repeats itself. And I think that we should all remember that, these are short-lived things. I don't think that, I think Donald Trump's got 4 years. I don't think he can rewrite the Constitution and create a monarchy. I don't believe that. So anyone who's stressed about that, yeah, I could be wrong. I'd like to think that Elon Musk is creating this reputation online for a reason, because he really thinks it serves him well. But I'd like to think that there's a human being in there somewhere, and we'll make efforts, won't we, Jared, to give Elon Musk a fair shot. We'll put out a press release. We'll try to get a hold of him. We'll try to get him on the show. Obviously, I don't think that he's going to show up. I think you're right. But I would like to see what he has to say, because other than that, we're just left holding the bag. Is he trying to be a king? Is he, what is his main objective here? What's his end plan? Just throw us all on Mars, eating potatoes, money. Which he certainly has a lot of.
But, being involved with government now, as close as he is, he can push, what he wants to see for regulations. So things that will benefit his companies, contracts that will go to his companies, things like that. So I think that's the problem with having these billionaires in there. But I think the government of the United States needs a change. I think it's unbelievably corrupt. And if you think otherwise, you're an idiot. and you're just not doing your research and you watch too much Fox News. And you should get your sources of news from elsewhere and always do your study, because it's that saying is, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it, right? It kind of ties in with what you've been saying. We've kind of seen this before. And like, it's funny you brought up Nixon, because Nixon's honestly one of the people that exacerbated the problem by taking us off the gold standard. Right? Because
Right.
at the time and previous, the gold is what tied your economy to your dollar and the worth of a dollar. And now that he took us off that gold standard, it's whatever the Federal Reserve, which is a private institution that's not government, says it is. And that's why we see the problems with banks and people like Raven losing their houses, because your $10 you put into a bank, the banks can now loan that out to 100 different people, and there's no value behind it, right? It's worth the $10 that you put into the bank. But we're allowing these banks to just create money, create wealth for these billionaires that nothing backs it. There's no physical assets that actually back currency. And
Right.
we're seeing countries that have wanted to go back to a gold standard or things like that, like they're met with outrageous feedback from the Western world of, no, you're not going to do that. Like, we
Right.
don't want you to go back to a gold standard. We don't want an actual physical asset tied to the valuation of our money, because then we can't create the wealth that we've created.
Do you think that we can actually, I mean, now that we're talking Nixon, do you think that we can draw a parallel between Nixon, Kissinger, and Trump, Musk? Because Henry Kissinger was kind of
Maybe,
Nixon's,
but I think Musk is different because, like, he's the world's richest man, right?
right. He's also
Sitting
not
right
as much
next
of a
to,
puppet that I'm aware of. He's not as much of a puppet as Kissinger was.
no, Elon's very much his own person, and he's outspoken, and he'll tell you, right? Like, I think he'll take input from other people, but if it contradicts his vision, he's not going to add any credence to it. So,
Do you think you would stand up to Donald Trump?
I think
if
he
you
will.
felt like you need to? You think he
Right.
will?
I think he will, and I think he's telling Donald, how to do things. But Donald Trump is also not an idiot. Like, and I think that he has his vision for what his presidency is going to be, and he's not going to allow Elon to get in the way of that, even if Elon was his biggest donor, right? So I think he's throwing him a bone by including him, because he, gave him so much money for his campaign and putting him
paying
into this
registered
office
voters.
that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing. This Department of Government Efficiency doesn't exist. Right? It's a thing
Right.
they've talked about, but you need Congress to actually create that department. And it'll be interesting to see if they can actually do it. Because I believe, Elon and Trump, especially on the visa thing, like the H-1B visas that they've been talking about, you're seeing a division within MAGA right now of the far right extremist and where Trump is on this subject. So how many others, buttons are Elon and Vikram and Trump going to push that alienates their base? And then your Republican senators and Congress people that you now have a majority, right? Republicans own the House and they own the Senate. We have a lot of Republican facing judges on the Supreme Court, and now you have a Republican president coming in. So it's all right. The left is not the majority anymore. So I'm hoping that people in government and Congress that are on the right will stand up to Trump and Elon and call bullshit where it needs to be called, and actually represent the people that elected them, because that's what they are. They're representatives of the people of the United States. And I think a
Yeah,
lot of them have forgotten that because corporations pay them. So,
absolutely. Yeah, I liked the scene in a recent documentary that I watched where it just showed the dollar figures over their heads as they're walking into Congress. Like here's how
yeah.
much this guy costs. Here's much this guy costs to push this legislation to move this agenda down the line. Here, the dollar figures above their heads. I almost wish that we could see that real time when you take an elected official that just goes into office, because I believe that's how they make their money. I don't think their 175,000 a year is anything to them. And I almost feel like my intelligence is insulted a little bit when you take a guy like Elon Musk, one of the richest guys in the world. This is something that does kind of piss me off. And he'll put out a press release that says, I only pay myself $1.
Right. That's
I
how
only
they
pay
get
myself
around.
$1.
Right. That's how
Yeah.
they create loopholes because our tax
Well,
code
literally his
helps
bank
them.
account is Tesla. Yeah. I mean, that
Right.
just tells me his bank account is his
Or
businesses.
SpaceX. Right. Or
He just,
Starlink.
yeah, uses those accounts personally, like, despite whatever board or whatever, whether it's a publicly traded company or not, I mean, it seems to be all about control. Just every bit of it. Just there's control and one way or the other. That's that rule with an iron fist. That's that dictatorship you talked about. That's that whole king of micromanagement. Man,
Yeah.
like,
And I, like you said, I think we said earlier, like AI is going to have a role in this because as AI evolves more and does more of the work that human beings are doing, we're going to have to switch how we do things because people won't have jobs, right?
right,
If you make AI garbage men, right? If you increase robots to be able to do everything a human can do, what's the point of having humans do anything? Especially labor intensive jobs, like garbage
right. And
men.
what are we going to do as the people that did those jobs and now we don't have jobs?
Right. And what are you
Oh,
going to do for currency? Like, I think humanity needs to get beyond a currency based society and go to something that's more functional of like a resource based economy. And that way there is no more money. Will we ever get there? Not in my lifetime. In my
oh,
kid's lifetime? Probably not. Great grandkid? Maybe. Again, as a society, we're going to have to demand that change. We're going to have to want that change and champion that change. And whether you believe in aliens coming down and helping us or not, you know, there's a lot of people that think that's going to happen this year. We'll see.
well, it's just such a crazy time, man. All the drones in the sky, that populating the media. I read somewhere a few weeks ago that I had slept through an alien invasion. I don't even know. I don't even know
Right.
what that is. Is that bullshit or what? I have no
I
idea.
think that was BS. But again, it's like, are aliens that hostile? Because if they wanted to, they could have killed us a long time ago and taken us over. I don't think they are. Um, I don't think you get to that point as a society or a species to be able to travel stars being focused on those kinds of things. And I think that's why humanity hasn't been allowed to expand into the universe, is because we're still focused on that. We're still focused on nation states and religions and things that divide us. We're so focused still on all the things that divide us instead of the things that unite us. And until we get to that point, I don't know, man. Like, I know we're getting kind of off topic here, but there's been some great Star Trek episodes that talk about some of this stuff, right? Like the technology in Star Trek, just the two, right? Two technologies in Star Trek would change all of humanity. One is the teleporter, right? Being able to teleport anywhere, right? You now have gotten rid of the entire travel industry, right? All automobiles, all airplanes, everything. So that's, trillions of dollars right there. And then the food replicators. So now if you don't have to go buy food, you can just make whatever you want at home with the food replicator. You no longer have the have and the have nots. Because if you've watched those episodes, it's not just food they can replicate, it's pretty much anything. And we're seeing that now with 3D printers. Like 3D printers are starting to be those food replicators, because you can make pretty much anything with a 3D printer now. And
That's
they've
so
even
wild.
made food. Like there are actual food 3D printers out there now that actually make food that you
How in
can
the
print.
hell?
So, I mean, it's a cool technology, but those two technologies in themselves can change humanity. But we have to be ready for it as a society, because there's been multiple episodes that talk about if you introduce technology like that too soon and where a society isn't ready for it, you can also create the ultimate weapons out of those kinds of technologies. So I think humanity needs to become that society of we, right, instead of a society of me's. And we have to get rid of the nation states and just realize that we're all human beings on the same big blue ball spinning through space. And until we get there, I don't think a lot of this stuff will change.
I'd have to agree with you there, buddy. Also, too, I mean, that makes me wonder. So if you've got this, great genius of our time, sorry, Elon Musk, this episode is about you. Just given your public nature and how much you're out there with your own platform and some of the things that you say. But, instead of going to Mars, why don't we, if we're such into robotic AI technology, why don't we make something that eliminates these healthcare issues, like a device in our home that will tell us what our illnesses are, or maybe even help us fix some of these things. Instead of going to Mars or having some car that I can't afford that drives me around, or a robot in my house that I got no interest in having. How about something that, an at-home doctor? I mean, if this guy is that genius of our time that has the ability to create these things, I wonder why the focus isn't there.
Well, again, I don't think we're going to see that change until we get rid of the for-profit systems. Right? We talked about this in our healthcare episode. As
Yeah.
long as there's money to be made, they're not going to cure you. They're going to give you a pill that alleviates your symptoms, but they don't want to cure you, because then they can't sell you anything anymore.
Right. They need to have you buy that pill that costs, $1,200 a month to keep you alive, and you need to pay that $1,200 the next month.
Right.
And then when you die, then that's passed on to your kids. They need to be on that $1,200 bill. Absolutely. I mean, it just really sucks that it's built that way. And I hate to go back to this, but we look at Richard Nixon again. He was the guy that teamed up with Kaiser Permanente. That hey, there's a for-profit healthcare system that works, and that's when we dropped to 31 at the time. And being the best healthcare system out there. So we have all the technology, we have all the money, but we are only number 31. I think it's even dropped. I think we're somewhere in the 40s. I think we covered
Yeah,
it
I think
during
we're
that
in the
episode.
40s. Yeah.
Yeah. You listed that specific number, and that's a good
Yep.
point. That's things that people need to think about. And so when we're starting to move on to this new technology, I think that, man, what can we do, Gen X? Can we start there? Can we start talking about it? Can we start having the conversation? Can we start posting that on our TikToks, on our Facebook, and our Instagram, where you can find Common X on every one of those platforms, by the way? If there's anybody out there listening to this show that knows how we can, spread that awareness, I think that, healthcare is that big of a deal. I don't want to go to fucking Mars. I don't want to go to Mars. I don't need a sex robot. I don't need this shit, man. I don't need, fake money that gets passed out to me the same as my neighbor when we don't make the same money. I don't need those threats, those dangers to our culture. I don't need to, lose my mind and rent a vehicle and throw a bunch of fertilizer in it and make a political statement and blow up a building. I don't have that desire or drive to do that. And it sucks that we're being pushed to that level. I am not. I feel like I need to walk that back. I'm just saying we are definitely angry. And we're seeing these types of behaviors. I think that, man, I think the conversation is where it starts. And I think everyone should remember exactly what Jared just said, that we are all just human beings trying to live and get by on this big blue ball. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's why we started this podcast, right? Is to get back to that common sense approach and that common ground. right? Not just Generation X, but all of us need to get back to a common narrative of understanding of what we look like as a species. Because again, we're all humans living on the same planet. It doesn't matter what color you are, or what color, or what country you're from, or what religion you are. We're all still living on the same planet together. We all have to get along, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think the
Let's be
narrative,
friends.
starts with right. But I think the narrative starts with all of us talking about what we want to be going forward as human beings, and elect officials that aren't corrupted or corruptible, and start there. I think that's the baby steps, if you want to call it baby steps, right? Um, I love that movie. What About Bob? Because baby steps to the door, baby steps to this. I think we need to take some baby steps, right? And I think that is the start. Is having good debates about what you believe, what I believe, what the left believes, what the right believes, and seeing the commonalities that we can agree on instead of the extreme differences.
Right.
So I think, we start with educating kids in school, teaching them how to debate, right? That helps them research both sides of an issue so they can come to a debate and have a good conversation about your view on something or my view on something, or, left versus right versus center. Like, what does that actually look like? Because I
have
think
those conversations without getting pissed, for sure.
right.
Be able
Because
to
I think
actually talk
we're
about it.
doing a disservice to ourselves by taking that out of our education systems. So I think things like that should be required, especially at like the high school level. High school kids, I think, in your last 3 years of high school, you should have to take the debate and history lessons and learn more about history and where we've come from, and economics, things like that. Because how much math are you actually going to use in your daily life? Right? Like algebra, pre-algebra, calculus, unless you're
A
going
little
into
bit, not much.
some of those scientific careers like physics or chemistry or anything like that, you won't use most of it. Geometry, I can see, because you need it for building things. But again, I think we need to focus more on things that help improve humanity as an education platform for our children than things that don't. So
Absolutely. It's a good statement. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us on Common X Podcast. This was episode 15, the King Elon, Visionary, Villain, or Vanguard. Please feel free to leave us a comment. We'll leave the comment sections open. You guys can go ahead and say what you think. Hero, villain, king. Let us know. Let us know what your thoughts are. We'll reach out to Elon Musk and his team to see if we can get some sort of response or possibly even get him on the show. Like I said, it's probably not likely as we're a young up and coming podcast. However, we are in the top 30% on Spotify. So thank you for your follows, your likes. Hit us up on TikTok, Gen X Dad, at Gen X Jared. Hit us on Instagram, Common X Podcast. Same with Lemon8. We're also available on YouTube. We're on Amazon Music. We're on iTunes. We're everywhere. So hit us up, guys. Leave a comment. Follow us on our social media. And my God, if you've got a host or a guest or somebody that you would like to see on this show or a certain topic that you want to talk about, feel free to hit us up. We're also on commonxpodcast.com. We've got a TikTok shop coming up here shortly. You can get your Common X t-shirts, get your stickers, get your hats, get all your swag, and we will see you on episode 16. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for listening and tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Give me your best Ric Flair. Come on. Woo, 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 woo.
That's my best.
All right, buddy. Yeah, that's pretty good. You're getting better.
All right. More practice,
All right,
right?
buddy. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Later.
Sounds good. See you.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today to the podcast, Common X with Jared and Ian. We really appreciate you guys and would love your support. So make sure you click that subscribe or like button or follow us on all our social media platforms and on YouTube and Spotify, because that would really help us out. And that helps us bring more episodes to you guys every week, and hopefully from content that you guys want to see. So Reach out, TikTok, YouTube, leave comments. If anything that you guys want to see or any guests that you want us to try and get on, let us know. We do have a good lineup coming. So thank you again. We love you guys. Thanks for your support. And we'll see you next time. And remember, common sense isn't that common. So that's why we're bringing common sense back from Generation X.